Got your first box of Space Marines, Tyranids, Necrons, or Orks, but want the real Warhammer 40,000 tabletop experience? Well, I'm Grant, and I'll show you how to build a proper 40k army. Factions, detachments, unit types, and more. This is 40k 101. This 101 series covers the absolute essentials for beginners, so if you're just starting out, subscribe and follow along for more. If you're further into your 40k journey, you might pick up a tactical tip or two, and if you're a veteran, well, feel free to roast me in the comments. Today we're focusing on the fundamentals of armies and the basics of list building. Further down the line I'll cover data sheets, cunning stratagems, some battle tactics and more. And to get things rolling, let's look at designing an army list for the most iconic faction for new players. The mighty Adeptus Astartes, better known as the Space Marines. You might be asking, why do I need to build an army list? Well, quite simply, an army list contains the details of the miniatures you're bringing into your game. It'll cover the models you're bringing, what weapons you've chosen to give them, and any additional upgrades. Some digital variants also act as a handy reference sheet for you that will contain all of the unit's rules too. The list that we designed today will be with us throughout this series, culminating in a battle report where we'll pit our freshly built force against my Sparisian revolutionaries, the custom faction I'm painting and playing. But what defines an army in Warhammer 40,000? An army in 40k is a collection of miniatures formed around a specific faction, although faction and army are often used interchangeably. The army itself will be made up of multiple units, each made up of a few models. This can be as small as one model, or a horde unit with as many as 40 models. All of the information about a faction can be found in its faction codex, the army book which contains all the information relevant to each faction. Each army has a specific army rule that often helps define how the army plays on the tabletop. Necrons reanimate, Tyranids use their Hive Mind, Orks declare Waaagh, and the Space Marines have their Oath of Moment, a powerful ability representing the oaths that Space Marines take before battle, swearing to destroy the enemies of the Emperor. Oath of Moment allows you to select one of your opponent's units each turn. If any of your models target an opposing unit with an attack, they get to reroll their hit roll and add 1 to their wound roll. Not all army rules are this straightforward, but we'll stick with this beginner-friendly buff. So that's what an army is in Warhammer 40,000. However, the 10th edition, the current edition of the game, also adds an additional element of customization to each of the armies. These are called detachments. Detachments add a suite of supplemental rules you can use to tailor your army's composition and playstyle. Each detachment contains a detachment rule, essentially a second army rule. Armies have access to multiple detachments, and these can be swapped as new ones drop. There are several available for the Space Marines, but for the sake of this 101, we'll use the Gladius Task Force, a flexible detachment rule that allows your army to use 3 different doctrines: the Devastator, Assault, and Tactical doctrines. These doctrines exemplify the combined arms nature of the Space Marines, allowing you to, once per game, respectively, 1. Advance all of your troops and shoot. 2. Advance and charge your troops. And 3. Fall back your troops from combat and still shoot and declare a charge. Each of these things are not normally allowed without a special rule, so having an entire army be able to do it once per game is really quite powerful. When we build our list, we'll keep in mind which units benefit most from these doctrines. Alongside the detachment rule, you get that detachment's stratagems, situational but strong abilities, and enhancements, which are long-lasting upgrades for your characters. We won't dive too deeply into stratagems and enhancements today, but they're good to know about when crafting your army. Also note that detachments are interchangeable across your faction. For instance, you might run the Gladius Task Force in one game, then switch to the Ironstorm Spearhead in another. If you're new, I recommend reading through the detachments available and picking the one that seems most fun for your preferred playstyle. Now that we've got the broad picture, let's talk about the units themselves. Units can be a single model or a group of models operating under one datasheet. They move, shoot, and fight together, and every unit has a special ability that they can do in-game. They come in 5 main categories: Battleline, characters, dedicated transports, other units, and some factions can access allied units. Units that can be brought into your army from other factions, but with restrictions. Allied units are outside the scope of this video, so we'll cover them another time. So what is each unit type? Battleline units are the core troops, the backbone of your force. For Space Marines, think tactical squads, assault intercessors, or heavy intercessors. You can field up to 6 of the same battle line units, so if you want a swarm of assault intercessors, go for it. Next up, we have characters. These represent the captains, lieutenants, and other individuals that might appear in your armies, like battlefield medics, standard bearers, or chaplains. These characters will often have unit buffing abilities, and most can be attached to certain units as leaders, becoming a part of that unit when deployed on the tabletop. Some characters, however, like to stand and act alone, like assassins and snipers, and will instead be lone operatives. Lone operatives add a restriction on when they can be targeted by ranged attacks. You can give any of your regular characters an enhancement from your detachment, which acts as an additional special rule. Each of these enhancements can only be used once. You are allowed up to 3 each of any of these characters, with one exception. Named special characters like Lieutenant Titus, who you may know from Space Marine 2. These special characters are noted as epic characters, and often have powerful abilities, and are limited to just 1 per army.
You're the special.
Me?
That you're the most important, most talented, most interesting, and most extraordinary person in the universe.
When you're building your army, you need to denote one of your characters, regular or epic, to be the leader of your army, called your army's warlord. Dedicated transports are basic vehicles to ferry your troops faster than walking would. They're often inexpensive and lightly armed, like the classic Rhino. You can field up to 6 of the same dedicated transport. Finally, we have other units. A bit of an ambiguous name for a unit type, but is basically all of the other units your army has access to. So any elite infantry, tanks like the Land Raider, walkers like dreadnoughts, or special weapon squads. You name it, it's here. I'm not going to go into all of them here, as Space Marines have a lot of different units available to them. Like characters, other units are limited to just 3 of the same unit type. So that's all of the different unit types, as well as the faction and detachment. So how do we build an army list? Well, firstly, there are a few different game types, such as open, matched, and crusade games. But for now, we're just going to build a list to play some basic games against a friend. So 1. Choose your game size. Pick a smaller points limit if you're short on time or just learning. About 500 points is perfect. If we want a small skirmish game, I would be remiss not to mention Combat Patrol. This is a game mode that uses a pre-made army list and are designed to be balanced against one another. They come in pre-designed boxes, and you can pick up one of those boxes and play a game against another one. In this case though, we're building a custom list because, well, it's just more fun. 2. Check points and datasheets. Each unit has a points value, which at time of writing you can find in its codex, though some factions are awaiting codices and have an index, its basic army list, available as a free download from the Games Workshop website. 3. List tools. So if you know your points limit, have access to your datasheets, and you know the points values of your units, you can begin constructing your list. There are a few different tools that you can do this with. The most readily available is to simply write out a list on pen and paper or in a digital document. Simply write down the names of each of the units you want to include, remembering the restrictions on how many of each unit you can include, and ensure that you have at least one character who you will name as your warlord. If you want digital tools, check out the Warhammer 40,000 app or newrecruit.eu. New Recruit is really simple to start writing a list with. Simply hit the Start Now button. Then, after you've signed up for an account, select Warhammer 40,000 from the drop-down menu in the top left. Then select Create a List. In the pop-up screen, select your faction, give it a name, select your points limit, then select Add Force and hit Create List. You'll then be taken through to the roster editor. You can quickly add units into your roster from the left and view their details by clicking the I button. There's a lot more to new recruits, and this is a very quick run through, so let me know if you'd like a more detailed overview. 4. Theme and fun. Don't forget, pick units that excite you. Nothing kills motivation faster than painting models you find boring. So let's build our example list. We're going to play points limit at 500 points. We're going to select Space Marines as our faction with the Oath of Moment army rule. For our detachment, we're sticking with the Gladius Task Force. So we'll want to select units that can synergize and can take advantage of the detachment ability. This means balancing some shooting with good combat across the units, but also units that you think look cool. So, straight out of the bat, I'm picking Blade Guard Veterans because they're my favourite Marine unit and I just think they look awesome. And they dish out damage in melee. The Inverness Squad is great for shorter range firefights, plus it fits my theme of a fast, hard-hitting force. Feel free to swap them out for a Heavy Intercessor Squad if you prefer holding back with heavier guns. For our battle line, let's use a squad of Assault Intercessors for some combat prowess. I'll add a combat machine in the Brutalis Dreadnought, and our Warlord will be a mighty captain, wielding a heavy bolt pistol, mastercrafted power weapon, and relic shield to lead the Blade Guard veterans. All of these units will be able to take advantage of each of the doctrines, especially the tactical and assault doctrines, and it brings us to just under 500 points. If we're keeping in mind of expanding to 1,000 points, we might want to keep a note of a few things, such as how quickly our units are able to get where they want to go. If it's not as fast as we'd like, we could add a transport. We might need some more ranged firepower, so we could look at a Redemptor Dreadnought as well. Get some games in and think about what areas you feel you struggled with. The other thing here to mention is budget. Start small, see what you enjoy playing, then invest further. And yes, we can hear you in the back, 3D printer goes burr guy. So now we've got our army built, what next? Well, next time we'll take a look at their datasheets so you can understand how each section works and what to look for in a datasheet. Let me know in the comments below what you're planning as a starting force and why you've chosen the units you have. And if this was helpful, hit like, subscribe, or share with a friend who's learning 40k. Now, let's take a look at what other hobbyists are up to in our community showcase. If you want to enter the Pluckee's Tabletop Parlor Community Showcase, come and join the Discord. You can find a link to the growing and vibrant community in the link below. Okay, first up we have Amber Lee's superb Sons of Horus for the Horus Heresy system. A lovely mix of Mark 6 and Mark 3 Marines here with that gorgeous ocean green, I love that. And some excellent rubble Rubens. Jack Magnum has converted the Sanguinary Guard with 3D printed wings and head swaps. Really looking forward to seeing how these will look when finished. Annie has painted up this excellent Huracan from the Lumineth Realm Lords. Love the green here, it gives it a real foresty vibe. Lord Puddlesworth, my liege, has given us 3 different units, including a set of 4 of the coolest tank going, the Heresy era Lehman Russ, alongside what I think is a Talon tank hunter. Lovely work, love the pink over the minis. Son of Order is back with another River Troll. Again, a lovely green as he hunts his dwarven prey. Excellent image here of the minis. Finally, we have Tagus with his Imperial Guardsmen. I believe he called this piece Overheated. Yes, that plasma gun will do that to you. Thanks everyone for submitting. We look forward to seeing more next time. Thank you so much for watching. Next time we'll be looking at unit datasheets. If you found this video helpful at all, please consider giving us a like and the channel a subscribe. It really helps us out. Again, thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.